Greeting everybody. Good evening. Good evening to all who are joining us on this Zoom call. I see there are many people who are welcoming us back after the vacation, Cape Town. I want to tell you that I really hope that you're working towards being a part of the next vacation. It was a very lovely time we had. It was a great pleasure to meet with many of our distributors, their leaders, and to speak with them and to see them in person. And also, it was very good for us to hear that you are getting value out of these training sessions. So today, without further ado, I'll introduce myself to our new distributors or guests. My name is Pascal Oloo, a long-time Neolife distributor. Always very happy to spend this half hour with you on a Thursday to speak about our products and how to position ourselves to better help those we come across. So wherever you are, I'm inviting you to relax and take the next 1 hour with us. And today, if you might have seen on your invite, we'll be continuing with a topic we started about three weeks ago. That is a healthy metabolism. During that session, we talked first, the introductory part was about food. But today we are going to carry on with what happens to the food once it enters our body. As you are aware, quite a number of our lifestyle-related illnesses are originate from the food that we eat and how they signal to our bodies, either for health or for illness. So I have a few introductory notes, points to make. The first is hormone. So we have often heard the word hormone. What is a hormone? A hormone is a chemical messenger, usually produced in a small organ that is called a gland. And this chemical messenger travels in the blood circulation to a target cell or a target tissue where it produces specific effects. So if I can give you the example of a familiar one, maybe you've heard of the hormone adrenaline, which our body produces when we get a fright, for instance. Then the adrenaline is going to send messages to our systems to prepare for an emergency. Either it will indicate that we should freeze because we want to hide, or we should run because we want to escape, or we should fight because we see no other way. So that is an example of a hormone produced, circulated in the blood, and having specific effects. But today we are not talking about adrenaline. We are going to talk about two hormones which are produced by a small organ called the pancreas. So the pancreas is a wide organ that is located just under the stomach. This gland, the pancreas, produces many hormones as well as enzymes. But we are going to be mainly interested in two of them for today. This is insulin, and the other one is called glucagon. So insulin is responsible for regulating fuel when we eat food. So when we eat food, especially carbohydrates are our fuel food. So when we eat some food with carbohydrates in it, we digest it, and the end result of carbohydrate digestion is glucose, which is one of the important fuels that our body uses to produce energy. So the hormone insulin from the pancreas is responsible for regulating glucose supplies to our cells and our tissues. The second hormone is called glucagon. Glucagon also regulates fuel, but it regulates fuel between meals. So think about it. You eat your breakfast, and then maybe you go to work, and you will not eat again, let's say, until lunchtime. So once your breakfast has been dissipated, your body has used it for the different things, then there is going to be a period where you have no food in your stomach. There is no digestion going on. That is the time that glucagon is produced to start its work of ensuring that you are supplied with the fuel you need until your next meal. Okay, then I also want to speak about the fuels that our body uses. I'm going to mention just two. The most common one is glucose. Sometimes it is called glycogen. So glucose is our favorite fuel that we would normally be using. We get it, as I said before, from carbohydrates. But we've got a second type of fuel, which are called ketones. So glucose comes from carbohydrates, but ketones come from fats. Okay, remember, fats are our stored fuel. Then the last thing in this section that I wanted to mention is that all the food that we eat and digest are used for one of three things. Number one is for growth, so amino acids from our proteins will be used to grow our tissues and repair them. Number two, the other food will be used as fuel to produce energy for us to do all the activities we do, including thinking, growing, exercising, all those use energy. And so some of the food will be used for fuel. As I said, the fuel can be glucose or ketones. And then the third place where the digested food goes will be storage. So any extras will be stored in our tissues, especially the fatty tissues, but also in our muscles, and a little bit is stored in our liver. Right, then we move to the next section. Before I start this section, I just wanted to say that this part of well, the next maybe two parts of these metabolic health sessions have been a popular request from a number of people, including my girl, Patricia, who wanted to hear about this, and a number of people who have asked about fatty liver disease. Others have asked about insulin resistance, prediabetes, and so on. So these sessions are going to address all of those. So before we go on, just to define what we mean by two terms, insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. I know there's been a lot on the internet about insulin resistance. We don't so much hear about insulin sensitivity, but that is because insulin sensitivity is what you find in a healthy metabolism. I want just to remind you, we as Neolife distributors are not so much interested in disease as in health. So we always want to know how a healthy body is going to function, because our Neolife products are targeted towards safeguarding our health and providing our systems with what they need to maintain health. So insulin sensitivity means that the metabolism is responding correctly to the insulin signals. And then the opposite of that is insulin resistance, which is a condition where our cells and tissues, or even metabolic reactions, fail to respond correctly to insulin. So insulin sensitivity is what we are working towards, because it means that we are responding, our systems are responding correctly to the hormones that are in charge of distributing fuel. And insulin resistance is when, for a number of reasons which I'll mention just now, our systems no longer respond correctly to these signals of these two hormones that I spoke about. So what can cause us to move from the normal insulin sensitive state to insulin resistance, which is the problem state? There are a number of causes. So one of them is visceral fat. That is a fat that is found surrounding our abdominal organs. We know that within our abdomen, there are many important organs. We have things like the kidneys, two of them on either side of our abdomen. We have the heart, we have got our digestive system, we have the liver, and so on. So all these organs in the abdomen can become encased in fats, and that is what we refer to as visceral fat. So it is not really the fat that is visible on our waistline, it is deeper inside. And unfortunately, they can actually press on the organs, and also they can produce certain signals that disrupt the correct response to the energy regulating hormones. So that is one. So if you have a visceral fat, and just to inform you that even people who are fairly slim can have visceral fat because they have got insulin resistance, but it is manifesting in a different way from the people who are fat. So insulin resistance, which maybe we'll not be able to speak about everything about it today, we'll carry it on to the next session. But just to know that that is one of the causes, the fat that encases our organs. And this can be in a fat person, and it can also be in a thin person. And that is why you find people, for example, with diabetes or other lifestyle diseases, some of them are slim and some of them are fat, because the problem manifests in different ways. The next cause that is linked to insulin resistance is a sedentary lifestyle. That is a lifestyle where you move little. Maybe as a result of your job or your state of health, you are not moving a lot. And this means that your energy expenditure is very low. And that means you accumulate the food that the fuel food that you eat is going to be accumulated as fat in fat tissues and other tissues. And also because of minimal movement, your muscles are going to start shrinking because they are not being stimulated to act. So if we don't use our muscles in working and in exercise and so on, they can become small, as probably you have noticed. If you have injured your leg maybe and it's put in a plaster, once the plaster is, so the plaster is there to immobilize the limb until it heals. When the plaster is removed, you see that the muscles could have become quite small because they were not being used. So sedentary lifestyle can lead to problems of insulin resistance. Then the third can be a diet that is rich in overprocessed foods, things like sugar and refined carbohydrates, things like seed oils, and so on. These foods are rich in calories but poor in nutrients and also contribute to inflammation. All of these contribute to insulin resistance. Another thing that contributes to insulin resistance is stress. So when we are stressed, we produce a different other hormone that is called cortisol. And what this hormone does is it signals to our systems to make glucose out of non-carbohydrate foods. And it also inhibits our cells from taking up glucose for energy. So stress is another contributor. A third is a genetic predisposition. Research is still going on exactly about the genetics of insulin resistance, but it is noticed that people of African and Asian races tend to be more prone to it. But it manifests, as I said, in very different ways. So you may see very slender people with it and plumper people with it as well. And finally, certain medications that we take can also contribute to insulin resistance. This can be if we are using a very high dose of medicinal insulin for your diabetes. It can worsen insulin resistance. If you're taking steroids for one thing or another, also can do the same. And also psychiatric drugs. So these drugs, you probably might be aware that they tend to cause weight gain. And the way they do that is through insulin resistance. So then I want to go on to speak about how a healthy metabolism operates. Okay, so here I'm going to use a diagram today. I know that some of you are usually just listening and not watching. I'll try to get the explanations clear enough for you if you are not actually watching. But if possible, probably I'm hoping the diagram will add some clarity to the explanation. So here what I have on the diagram is a healthy insulin-sensitive metabolism. That is what we are working towards. So there are two aspects to it. There is the normal response when we have eaten food and the normal response when we have not eaten, that is in between meals. So when we have, once we have eaten and the food is digested, the glucose from there, from the carbohydrates we've eaten, will be absorbed, and the presence of glucose in the blood is going to signal to the pancreas. So the pancreas is the gland that I mentioned initially that produces both insulin and glucagon. So the presence of increased glucose in the blood is going to signal to this gland to produce insulin. And then the presence of insulin in the blood, again, is going to signal to a number of places. The first will be to our muscle cells. Remember, we have got muscles all over our skeleton that helps our skeleton to move. It will also send signals to the liver, and it will send signals to the fat cells. So to the muscle cells, the presence of increased insulin in the blood is going to instruct our muscle cells to top up their glucose supplies, because maybe we've been working or doing or exercising or other things, I mean, there are muscles that work whether we are at rest or asleep, like our heart muscles are always at work. So when we provided ourselves with food, digested it, and the carbohydrates have been turned into glucose, the hormone insulin is going to instruct the cells, muscle cells, to top up their glucose supply. Normally most of the glucose that is produced is going to go to our different muscles for their use for energy. So as I indicate here is 85%. But remember that here we are talking about a normal healthy metabolism. So 85% will go to the muscles to ensure that muscles have the fuel they need for fueling its activity. Then the other place where insulin is going to send signals is to the liver. So the liver is a very, very important organ. Maybe sometime in the future we'll talk a bit more in detail about it, just to know that it has got more than 500 different functions, some of the most important being detoxing. But here, the thing that the insulin is going to signal to the liver will be to stop releasing glucose that is stored within it. A small amount of glucose in the form of glycogen is stored inside the liver, which can be easily released to top up our blood glucose if it goes low as a result of not having food. So because we have just eaten food and digested it, the insulin is going to tell liver to stop releasing its own glucose stores, and instead to top up its glucose stores. So stop releasing, instead top up. And this is where about 2 to 5% of the glucose we get from our food is going to go to storage in the liver. Then the third thing that will be the third thing that will be the signal to the liver will be to convert the extra glucose, which we are not using, into fat and send it to the fat cells. So the liver is in charge of converting any extra energy. We have already put 85%, 90% away. We put 85 into the muscles of the body. We put about 2 to 5% in the liver. Now the remaining extra, which we don't need we have no work for now, will be converted into fat and sent into fat cells for storage. The fat cells might be under our skin, they might be at our hips, and so on. So that goes to storage. So the third place where insulin is going to send instructions is to our fat cells. So what the insulin will tell, the signal to the fat cells is, stop releasing your stored fuel, because we have got new fuel that has been brought just now from the digestive system. So the fat should retain fat cells would retain the fat that they have, but the insulin also tells them to take up and store the fat that the liver is making out of glucose. Remember point number 3 on the liver, it says convert extra glucose into fat. So the fat cells are also told, take that fat that the liver has made and store it for future. So 10% of the glucose goes into this conversion and storage in the form of fat. So I hope with that explanation, you understand what happens to the food once it's eaten, digested, and absorbed. And here I'm mainly speaking about carbohydrates, which are the source of our main fuel, which is glucose. Then we look at the other aspects. Remember that on many occasions I've recommended that unless you have a specific reason, let's say you are a very small child whose stomach volume is small, so that you need to eat many small meals all throughout the day, we should avoid snacking, which means that in between your meals, you will not be having food. And a lot of thought has been fed to us that if we have to be eating all the time. But this is not the case, because our system has developed in such a way that it will take out the stored fuel material and supply it to us in between meals. However, if we are continuously eating, it means we never have any need to go into our storage. It's like when you have got a very successful Neolife business, you've got plenty of customers who pay you in cash. You use the cash for your regular things, and you do not need to go and get your monthly check from your bank account because you already have cash. And so your bank account keeps on growing big. So think about your bank account to be something like your fat cells and your liver and so on. You can go into that storage when you need it, but when you don't need it, you do not need to go there. So this is the same with our food. If we have not eaten, let us say we had breakfast early in the morning at 7 o'clock, we've gone to do our business, we are busy all day long. And then around 1 o'clock, maybe we are starting to feel like, let's say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, the food has dissipated. Maybe we are starting to feel our stomach is a bit empty, but our bodies have got a plan. What happens is that when there is no food in the digestive system and the glucose levels in the blood drop, it stimulates the production of the second hormone from the pancreas that is called glucagon. Glucagon mainly communicates with the liver. What it says to the liver is, release the glucose that you had stored and put it in circulation because our energy supplies, our fuel supplies are getting low. So we need what you had stored. But remember, we said it is not a large amount. It is soon used up. So glucagon, apart from telling the liver to release its stored glucose in the form of glycogen, it also says to the liver, make glucose from some of the stored fat, small amounts of the stored fat, turn it back into glucose so we can use that. And if these sources are released in circulation, then we find that if lunchtime passes, maybe we'll have a bit of low energy, but after a while we pick up again. So you've noticed maybe that when you are too busy to stop for lunch, let's say you normally have lunch at 12:30. If you are busy until, let us say, 1:30, 2 o'clock, by 3 o'clock, you notice that you're actually not hungry and you can go on. And that is because this other system, the no food system, actually gets into place and starts supplying you with energy from the stored fuel sources. Now, if we go on, maybe let's say we are fasting for one reason or another, we continue not having taken food. What is going to happen is that glucagon will give instructions that the liver should break down our fatty tissue into what we call ketones. So ketones come directly from fat. So fat breakdown produces ketones. And the ketone is an alternative fuel to glucose. So you can use this instead of glucose. And that is why you may hear, for example, in the Bible, it says that Jesus and St. John were able to fast for long periods because the system is built in such a way that you can go into your fatty tissue. The liver can break it into this alternative fuel that is called ketones. Okay, so that is what happens. And that way you see that we are able to provide ourselves with fuel until our next meal. All right. I hope that we are together so far and we are not getting too much into the science of it. But as I said, I'll go slowly so that we don't get a bit overwhelmed. I will appreciate feedback later on. I'll go through the comments just to see how it's going. But I'm hopeful that with the diagram and with the explanation is fairly clear. So now we know what a healthy metabolism is doing. It is able to supply energy when we have eaten, and it is also able to supply energy or fuel when we are in between meals. Now, I want to move to the next part, which is the manifestations of insulin resistance. So now we have seen what happens in a healthy metabolism. And remember, the healthy metabolism is what we are gunning for, which can provide us with energy during meals and also when we are in between meals. But as I said, we can develop what is called insulin resistance, which is when this system that I've mentioned there does not work very well. And what we can think of insulin resistance is, we have spoken severally before about pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes, and also type 2 diabetes. Before that develops, the beginning of that whole process is what we can call insulin resistance. So you can refer to it as pre-diabetes and pre-diabetes, okay, that when things start going wrong. Unfortunately, insulin resistance is not one thing. Normally what you'll see is people say, that is insulin resistance. It has this effect, that effect, and the other. It affects this, it affects that, and it affects the other thing. Yes, that is true, but it's the same thing manifested in different ways, in different peoples, and in different organs. And this is why when we speak about it, we will not speak about it as if it's the same thing everywhere, because it will look different. And when it looks different, we might think that it is a different thing. And yet it is actually the same thing manifesting itself in different ways. So the first place I wanted to mention where we notice things going wrong during insulin resistance is in the blood. As a result of the causes that we talked about, let us say you are very sedentary, your job is busy, you don't have much time for moving. It means that you're not using much of your energy. So you keep on saving the extras that we were talking about, that you keep on saving. Now, instead of just keeping 10% of your glucose, you might be keeping a lot more than that in your fat cells, and you might notice a beginning of weight gain. So when our muscles, which are supposed to be the biggest reservoir of our glucose, taking up 85 to 90%, are not really in need of fuel, they can become insulin resistant. And when muscle cells become insulin resistant, what happens is that the blood is then forced to remain, the glucose is forced to remain in the blood. Remember, it is circulating in the blood, being instructed to top up the muscle cell, top up the liver, top up the fat cells, and so on. But because of this insulin resistance in our muscles, the glucose unfortunately remains in the blood. And what we notice in insulin resistance in our blood is that we start having abnormally high blood glucose chronically. So it remains continuously high instead of getting high and then dissipating. And as the body is trying to dissipate this high blood glucose, a lot of other problems start happening. So this high blood glucose is toxic to our systems. And maybe later I'll mention how it manifests its toxicity. So we are supposed to keep our blood glucose at a low but steady level, in a way that I'm just going to mention if we have a chance for that. I see that time is running quite fast. But just to say that one of the first things we notice is abnormally high blood glucose, because the glucose is not going to its destination as a result of insulin resistance in our cells. Here specifically, I'm talking about the muscle cells. So maybe we can go to another diagram that is going to where I'm going to just indicate some of the organs that are affected. So the blood, we will not show it in the diagram because, of course, it's blood. But just to know that the abnormally high blood glucose is one of the first problems. Now, one of the ways the body tries to get rid of this abnormally high blood glucose is by converting it to fat in the liver and storing it in fatty tissues around the abdomen. And that is when we notice that our waistline begins to get thicker because of the fat being deposited around our abdomen. Some of the fat will also be stored in the fat cells. You will see we have the fat cells on the left, is that right, or the right-hand side of our young gent over there. Unfortunately, if we continue storing fats in the adipose tissue or the fatty tissue, what's going to happen is that the fat cells are going to get full. And when they get full, they are going to start resisting the signals from the insulin to take up more fat. Instead, what they're going to do is to start breaking down the stored fat within themselves and releasing it into the blood. So apart from having too much glucose in your blood, we are going to start having too much of the fatty acids pouring out of the fatty tissue back into the blood. And you can imagine how unhealthy the blood is going to get when it has got too much glucose, which is not going anywhere, as well as too much fat, which is also not going anywhere. And these are going to start causing problems. So, for example, the fatty cells are going, the fat cells that are pouring their contents into the blood are going to create what is called fatty blood. And fatty blood worsens the insulin resistance. At the same time, it increases the making of plaque. You'll remember plaque from our cardiovascular health. So that plaque is going to start causing problems in our blood vessels because our blood vessels are going to become narrow, and we are going to end up with high blood pressure as a result of the plaque being deposited in our blood vessels. Apart from the blood, we'll have issues of insulin resistance in the liver. What's going to happen in the liver is that instead of doing what it was supposed to do, as we saw in the normal diagram, it's going to start making new glucose from fats, even though we already have too much glucose in the blood. Remember, we are having, the first thing we saw is that there's too much glucose in the blood, which means the liver should not be making more. But instead, we see that as a result of ignoring the signal from insulin, the liver is going to start converting some of the fats into glucose and storing it within itself. So remember, we have previously had questions about fatty liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So this is a kind of fatty liver that previously was found in alcoholics, people who overuse alcohol, but now it is being found in people who take too much sugar and refined carbohydrates. The liver reacts to them the same way. So it takes that excess sugar or glucose in the blood, converts it into fat, and since the fat cells are already full and don't want to take any more fat, the liver has no choice but to store the fat within itself, which of course begins the destruction of our liver. Another thing that happens in the liver is that the liver is going to take up fatty acids which are being poured into the blood. Remember, we also have fatty blood now. So the liver will take up that fat in the blood and make it into, and try to convert it into glucose. When that is done and not yet enough, it will store the fatty acids within itself. So you can see that the liver is desperately trying to get the signals from glucagon and insulin, but the signals, unfortunately, become confusing. And that is what happens to the pancreas. You see, the pancreas is that little organ at the beginning of, at the top of the diagram. So this is where the organ that I said is found just below the stomach. And what it's supposed to do is to produce those hormones. But when the hormones are counteracting each other, then the liver ends up ignoring insulin and trying to obey glucagon. Another thing that will happen, I think, I'll mention one more thing, and we will continue with this metabolic health in the week after next. Next Thursday, we shall be doing Q&A again, but the Thursday afterwards, God willing, we shall continue with the metabolic health because it's fairly lengthy and fairly important, because you will see that a lot of our illnesses are rooted in a sick metabolism. So I'll finish this section by just saying that I mentioned that muscle cells can become insulin resistant and refuse to absorb glucose from the blood. The heart is also made of muscle. And when the muscle cells of the heart become insulin resistant, what happens is that they refuse to take up glucose, which means that the heart does not have the energy it needs in order to beat efficiently. What will end up happening then is that the heart is going to be less efficient, what we've referred to before as heart failure. Remember, heart failure does not mean that the heart is not beating. It means that the heart is not beating efficiently. And insulin resistance can contribute to that, because the muscles of the heart are now not absorbing glucose the way they should, because they are insulin resistant, which means they are resisting the supply of glucose that is being provided. Another thing that happens is that I mentioned a few minutes ago that the formation of plaque as a result of the overfull fat tissue. What will happen is that the plaque is going to deposit inside our blood vessels, which is going to lead to high blood pressure. And high blood pressure, of course, is part of the cardiovascular problems that comes from this. So we'll pause with that part and continue with the effects of insulin resistance the week after next. But now I wanted to mention, in the remaining minutes that Pascal has allowed me, some of the products that, how our Neolife products are going to help us to maintain that healthy metabolic system. The first that we always speak about is botanical balance. And botanical balance is a preparation of herbs. These herbs improve insulin sensitivity. Remember, insulin sensitivity is what we are gunning for, so that our metabolism responds correctly to insulin. So the botanical balance will help with that. The second thing is that botanical balance herbs support insulin in trying to move glucose into the cells. Remember, we said that some of the cells reject the glucose that is being brought because they are resistant to the signals from insulin. So botanical balance is going to help ease that problem. It will also lower the amount of blood glucose after our meal, so that the system is not overwhelmed with a big bomb of glucose. Then the second product that we recommend will be Treanen. Treanen has very many ways in which it assists us. We know that it supports cellular health, which means that the health will be better able to respond correctly to insulin. At the same time, it is going to help our mitochondria. You will recall mitochondria are those small organs that are our energy producing centers inside the cell. So Treanen makes sure that our mitochondria are functioning properly, and when the mitochondria are functioning properly, the energy system is then improved, because then the cell will be able to take up glucose as it should and convert it into energy to use. The third products that we recommend for our healthy metabolism is fiber tablets. So the fiber tablets slow down the rate at which glucose is absorbed from the intestines after digestion. This means that they will give insulin signals time to take effect. So the fiber just slows things down, kind of giving the system a moment to get ready to take effect. And that is why we recommend that we have, when we are taking carbohydrates, the best carbohydrates are those which are rich in fiber, because apart from the fiber tablet supplements, we need dietary fiber. So we do not remember, the supplements supplement, they don't replace. So we are not indicating that you use fiber tablets to obtain all the fiber that you need. What it's supposed to do is to supplement the fiber that is coming from your diet. This fiber that is coming from your diet will also assist in slowing down the avalanche of glucose that can come from highly refined carbohydrates that have almost no fiber. Then, fiber also helps in the removal of waste from our gut. So it ensures that we do not accumulate wastes within, in its form of feces that remain too long in the system, for example, in constipation and so on. Fiber is going to help with that. And as it is getting rid of waste, it's going to get rid of some, not all, but some small amount of the excess glucose that is spoiling the whole thing. The fourth product, and I think will be the last one I'll mention, is magnesium complex. This magnesium complex is such a wonderful addition to our Neolife range, because magnesium is a very, very important mineral in our metabolism. So some of the things that magnesium complex will do include improving insulin sensitivity, again, so that we are able to respond correctly to insulin. It is also an enzyme factor that helps in absorption of glucose, so it's going to assist the cells and the organs in absorbing the glucose that is being provided. It will also improve the mitochondria action of converting glucose into energy efficiently. And another one is that it is going to help to bring down blood glucose levels. So I leave you with those four, just to say that those four supplements are very important for a healthy metabolism. And I would say that if you have a familial history of blood sugar issues, they should be something that we include in your regular supplementation. I know that often we are, it's a bit tight financially for us. So it does not mean that we have to take them continuously. We can take them from time to time, but also improve our diet so that we get some of the assistance from the changes in our diet, improving our dietary habits, as well as using the supplements as far as our budget allows us. If our budget allows, I would say that for most of us of African and Asian origin, it would be prudent to be using botanical balance at least from time to time. And this more especially if we have a familial history of type 2 diabetes, or if you have noticed that we have the symptoms of pre-diabetes, or we have a tendency to not react well to carbohydrates. If the carbohydrates tend to make us put on weight so much and so on, we should do two things: improve the type of carbohydrates that we eat. They should be rich in fiber, and also avoid the overprocessed carbohydrates and eliminate sugar from our diet. And at the same time, also, we can include movement and exercise in our lifestyle, because exercise and movement use up the fuels, and that way bring our glucose levels down. So I see that my time is up. I know maybe it was a bit hectic, but I hope that you are able to keep up. And remember, any questions are always welcome. And as I said, we shall continue with this in the session of the week after next. But next Thursday, I will be dealing with the Q&A. So I have quite a bit of questions because last week we did not touch on them. So I'm looking forward once again to being with you next Thursday, God willing. And thank you very much for your time and for using your data to join our training. I have Pascal here beside me, ready to take you through the business part of today's session. And from me, it's a good night until we meet again.
Thank you very much, Betty. That was quite some wonderful information. As I was sitting here listening and listening and listening, after 29 years in the business, you still learn every single day. So Betty and I attended the World Team Conference in Cape Town last weekend. Sorry, I'm corrected. We attended the World Team Vacation in Cape Town. So by show of hands, how many of you would like to go to Egypt next year in May? For the next New Life Vocation, how many of you would like to go? I see Anne Gao is very excited. Raphael Mbithi is very excited. Rosemary is very excited. The whole screen is lighting up with people who want to go to Egypt next year. I promise you, it's a fantastic holiday. It's a very, very good. Let me give you an idea of what Betty and I and the leaders who are who went to Cape Town experienced. Betty and I left here on Thursday by the 1:30 flight. It's 2 hours to Cape Town. When we landed, we found a New Life staff member waiting for us. She had been there from 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for distributors from all over the African continent. When we got there, we were given some packed lunch to refresh ourselves. We were put in a minibus. We were taken to the hotel where we were staying. When we got there, each of us was assigned a room. You would get to your room, and then we went for dinner. And some of what we ate is really, it is something to behold is not the right word. It's lovely. We enjoyed the meals. The next day we went for in fact, we went for the conference for only half of the day. The rest was vacation time. On Saturday, each distributor was given a voucher of 500 Rand to spend. So if you're a husband and wife, you'd be given 1,000 Rand by the company to spend at the VA waterfront. So you buy anything you want, 1,000 Rand. Well, 1,000 Rand is not a lot of money, but nobody will give you that 1,000 Rand. I mean, 1,000 Rand, if you convert to Kenya shilling, that's about 8,000. If you convert to Naira, I'm really not sure how much that is. Quite a bit of money. So the session I want to share with you today is how to take your steps. If you're a new distributor, you've joined the business today. If you're even a guest, you have not joined the business. If you joined the business 1 month ago, 2 months ago, you've been there for a year, 2 years. If you want to make it to Egypt next year, it is quite possible to become a director in 5 months and look for 3 or 4 other people who become directors in 5 months. Let me show you how. Taking your steps. If you give me a moment, let me just give me a moment. Let me just share this, put something on the screen that I would like to use to, okay, there it is. So if you're a brand new distributor, you've just started the business, and you want to become a director in 5 months, let me give you a very simple plan to get there. Okay? What is our business? What do we actually do in our business? In our business, we move products from near life to different customers. Each product has a PV attached to it. For example, the product that Betty was talking about, 3NN, 60 capsules is 17 PV. All right? So what do you need? In fact, every single person who is attending this meeting, every single person you know needs 3NN. Why? Because our diet does not supply the sufficient nutrients to help our cells to absorb nutrients. So what do you need to go and do? Go and look for 6 to 8 customers just to use 3NN. Explain to them, look, you need to buy 3NN because this is what 3NN does. It helps your cells to absorb nutrients. If you eat an orange, and to get the ascorbic acid or vitamin C to your cells needs to be soft and permeable to absorb those nutrients. So everybody needs 3NN. What is this plan that I'm talking about? The plan is to sponsor 2 new people every single month. How do you do it? Speak to 2 people every day. So in this plan, you personally sponsor 2 people. And each person, you together, your 2 new people, you get 6 to 8 customers who want to use 3NN, or who need magnesium, or who need CalMag, or who needs botanical balance, whatever product it is. So sponsor 2 people plus yourself are 3. At the end of that month, you will have 300 qualifying PV. What do you do in the next month number 2? Month number 2, you do exactly what you did in month number 1. Sponsor or recruit 2 people into your business. And the people who you recruited in the first month also sponsored 2 each. At the end of that month, you will have 9 people in your team, each person doing 100 PV. That's 900 PV. You're a manager. Month number 3, You sponsor only 2 people. And each of those people in month number 2, 9 people, sponsor 2 each. You will have 27 people in your group, each person doing 100. 2,700 PV, you're an executive manager. Month number 4, those 27 people sponsor 2 people each. Sorry, yes. It means you'll have 54 new people plus the 27, you've got 81 people in the group. In fact, the figure is over 100 people. If you have 100 people in your team, each doing 100 points, that's 10,000 PV. You're a director already. Okay? And you remember you've also developed senior managers and managers in your group. You need to keep duplicating this simple plan, 2 to 10 plan, which means 2 people every month, and each person doing 100 PV. Month 5, you've already done your first step to be world team member. Even if you achieve 10%, 50% of this, that's 5,000 points. You're growing to be an emerald director. That's how this 2 to 10 plan is simple but effective. Why? Because it is easy to teach somebody. This plan is only in 1 page. If you're a leader, get it, understand it, put it in practice, and practice it with your team. If you do that, nothing will stop you from if you are from Nairobi, you'll be getting in the KQ flight going to Cairo. If you're from Uganda, you'll get into Uganda Airlines. If you're from Tanzania Air. If you're from Nigeria, whatever airline you're using. If you're from South Africa, South African Airways, whatever it is. Use this simple plan to take your steps. Let's get to the practical things you need to do to make sure this plan works. The first step is this. You need to have at least over 200 people. If you're new, before you sleep tonight, take half an hour, take your cell phone, go into the contact list. You will find at least 300, 400, 500 people on that list. Write their names down. Buy a notebook, blank notebook. Write everybody's name. 3 rules about nameless building. 1, do not prejudge. 2, write their names down. Number 3, talk to each one of them one at a time. All right? Number 2, you need to develop a very effective DMO, daily method of operation. Every single day, you need to talk to 2 people about the business. If 9 o'clock at night reaches and you haven't spoken to 2 people, don't go to sleep until you've spoken to 2 people. All right? Why am I saying that? If you talk to 2 people every day, at the end of the week, you'll have spoken to at least 12 people. In a month, you'll have spoken to 48 people. Out of 48 people you've spoken to, 3 to 4 to 5 will be serious contenders to be distributors. But where we drop the button is we don't discipline ourselves to do the daily method of operation, speaking to 2 people every single day. That's the first. Number 2, that's number 3. Number 1 is a name list. Number 2, a daily method of operation. Number 3, keep company with only the people who encourage you to go after your dreams. Don't keep company with people who discourage you. Don't keep company with people who are continuously complaining. You know, it's very easy to complain about life. When we were in Cape Town, last year, Nigeria's currency was depreciated by 100%. It means that at the beginning of the year, if they had 100,000 naira to buy products, by the end of the year, they only had 50,000 naira to buy those products because our products are pegged in the dollar. And guess what? Nigeria did an average of 6.2 million PV every month. This past Monday, I had the privilege of inviting Mike Sipanje from Zambia, telling his story of what Mike had not even finished his secondary school. He started the business with no money. His family members told him that he's going to fail, that he should not do the business. He got in touch with the sponsor, Irene. When they're supposed to meet, he told Irene, look, I don't have money to come to Lusaka. Irene sent him money. He went to Lusaka, met Irene, and said, I don't have money to go back. He was given money to go back. Do you know what he did? He didn't pay the taxi or the matatu or the bus to go back. He walked. So, friends, there is no excuse that you see, the thing about excuse is this. The more you have excuses, the more you get to keep them. The more they control your life. Mike Sipanje is now an Emerald director. He was saying that his income at the moment, every month, he is able to pay 4 teachers in Zambia. So, friends, take this business seriously. Take this business, and that leads me to, once you have checked the people around you, and then feed your mind with positive material every single day. If you do that, your mind will tend to be attracted to the right people to help you build your business. That's what this business is about. That's how you're going to get to Cairo. That's how you're going to go to Cairo. If you're new today, you're going to get to Cairo and go with people in your team because you made a commitment to get there. And that leads me to the last thing is, how do you overcome your challenges? Okay? Discipline your disappointments. Every single person I know faces challenges. Everybody. You're not an exception. Okay? So, how do you face your challenges? Number one, the first thing you're going to experience in this business is called no-show. That is, when you invite a prospect to look at the business and they don't show up. If that hasn't happened to you, you're not doing the business. If it happens to you, then you're on the right path. Number two, me-shows. Me-shows is when you call a meeting and you're a business person, not even the people in your team shows up for the business, for the presentation. Okay? So, if it happens to you, welcome to the business. Number three, negative talk. You need to avoid negative talk with yourself, with your friends, social media. Our CEO, Kendra Brassfield, did a session for us that shows the effect of negative talk on water. There's a Japanese scientist called Dr. Emoto. He took 3 bottles of water and put labels on them. The first label, he said, I hate you. The next one, he ignored the water bottle. The third one, he said, I love you. And he kept repeating the same information to the 3 bottles. One, he said, I hate you. The other one, he ignored, he never said anything. The last one, he said, I love you. He talked very kind words to the bottle. And then they froze the water and they checked the crystalline structure. The water which was spoken to harshly, the water which was ignored, the crystalline structure was very amorphous. The one that you shared spoke lovely to, had very clear, beautiful crystalline structure. And guess what? Our body is 70% water. So think about what negative talk affects your physical health. When your upline is not available, remember, this is your business. It's not your upline's business. If you're lucky your upline or your sponsor success line is helping you to grow your business, take full advantage. If they're not there, look for somebody in the team or in the upline that can help you grow your business. Number 5, customers will complain about price, about service. Customers will change their mind. All these things will happen to you in your business. So discipline your disappointments. And how do you overcome all this? Pay attention to your goals and dreams. Engage in income-producing activities every day, the daily method of operation. Read good books every day, at least 15 minutes before you go to bed. Keep friends who encourage you, and exercise every day. If you do these simple things, you're going to discipline your disappointment. You're going to get into the mood of income producing activities daily. And if you keep doing that, your business will grow. And I will see all of you in Cairo next year. Thank you. Good night and God bless.